absolutely
Crazy.
ridiculous. Some of the reasons they're espousing for how this is just so discriminatory and it's going to disenfranchise so many people. But in reality, this is a really good news story. This is actually something that's super uplifting. Obviously, it still needs to pass the Senate, but I mean, we have the Senate, so that should be relatively easy to do, right? On yesterday, April 10th, the U.S. House of Representatives passed this act with 220 Republican votes. 220 to 208, with only 4 Democrats voting in favor. So literally every single other Democrat, aside from these 4, and we can actually give them a shout out really quick. We have Jared Golden from Maine. We have Marie Perez from Washington.
Nice.
Henry Celiala from Texas, and Ed Case from Hawaii.
What was the second name?
It was
female.
Marie Perez from
Marie
Washington.
Perez. So that sounds like a Hispanic last
girl,
name. That would definitely defeat the narrative that you are racist and a bigot for demanding voter ID if a woman that has Latino descent is out there advocating for it.
So, I mean, thank goodness at least these 4 have common sense. But this is a really, really big deal. Kind of going back to what we were talking about in the first story, how many things did the Democrats try to get Trump to lose? When we look back at the last election, obviously we had the assassination attempts after they had previously exhausted all of their other options. But we did see in 2020 the lengths they went to actually cheat.
They definitely tried over 100 things.
I would say
many.
200 things.
Everywhere you look, there was some subversion of policy or voting or
would you
cases.
Would you say the thousands?
I mean, this
you think
is...
they tried?
I mean, I think thousands of people were involved because when you think about it, it's multiple states. It's not just they tried to do it in New York with the criminal case. They tried to do it in Georgia with the criminal cases as well. So there's people within those organizations or within those governments that were also complicit in trying to take him down. And then you talk about the media, also the way that they reported on it. So it's, I don't know how many attempts, but it's thousands of people that attempted.
And how many things, like, bro, even you know what their main one besides Russia collusion, which came after, grab them they thought that was going to be the takedown. Americans were like, yeah.
But realistically, one of the things that they did extremely effectively, going back to the 2020 elections, Jakes, could we actually play the last slide that I have, please? I actually want to bring this up right now. At this point in the presentation. And let's show 2020, what that election was like.
Oh, this?
Yeah, let's go ahead and bring this up. This was a little bit suspicious, don't you guys think? Tom and I ran a political polling show for the last election. And, you know, one of the things that I never really said publicly that we never really brought up until the very end is regardless of how good of a campaign you run, you know, of all the things that you do to pull people to your side, if something like 2020 happens again, we would have essentially been
What do you
screwed.
mean something like 2020?
If all of a sudden there are this many extra people
Look at
who
that.
were voting in an election
I don't
coming
see
out
anything.
What do you mean you don't see it? You don't
those
see
people
Are you
go?
colorblind?
You don't see the thing with all the massive question marks?
I don't see anything.
30 million people. Where'd they
It
go?
was a free and fair election.
Omerta, shut up.
It almost looks like they doubled the amount of voters. Looking
They
at
did.
that
The
graph
Democratic
chart.
Party doesn't get more than that, bro.
And, like-
That's it. Obama.
Everyone I know,
Maybe
basically,
more people turned out to vote.
pretty much everyone
Yeah,
I
during
know.
the pandemic when they
on-
scared us to stay home.
Right. Pretty much everyone I know on the Republican side, obviously they all wanted Trump to win, but so many people genuinely didn't think he was going to because of this. My roommate literally made a bet that if Donald Trump won, she would wear the Handmaid's Tale outfit for 2 months. She never ended up doing it. I kind of wish she did. That would have been hilarious. But even though she so badly wanted him to win, she just didn't think it was possible because she thought they were going to cheat. And this, the SAVE Act, the lack of the SAVE Act and the ability to have illegals voting is one of the best mechanisms and the most effective mechanisms that they could use to actually achieve that. But as a result, we saw that this was people's number one issue was immigration. People were seeing it on their front yard. They were affected, all the murders, all the rapes, all of the terrible things that were happening.
All the money that we were losing, yeah.
Plus, people were way more alert on account of what happened in the 2020 elections, that everybody was on the lookout for them to cheat. And so, fortunately, they weren't able to pull off whatever agenda they successfully pulled off in 2020. I mean, we saw that they tried. Did you guys see the ballot truck? The truck that had all the fake ballots inside of it that got pulled over.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Well, what do you mean? Yeah, but what? No, dude, I saw
they reported
multiple.
it.
What are you talking about, dude? Tulsi Gabbard yesterday at the what was the meeting that they have with all the heads?
Oh, DNI meeting or something?
Something, whatever. Tulsi Gabbard's like they're actively working on how all the voting machines were like easily hackable and all it's all
100%.
bullshit, bro.
We proved it on the show.
It's a machine. You can hack any machine.
The Senate Intelligence Committee. Is that what
Senate
you're talking about?
Intelligence Committee. Well, yeah, because yesterday she was in what's the cabinet? She was at the cabinet meeting where everybody was in there. She was in there and she was saying in front of Trump everything that he said. She was like, "You're right." All the stuff that they said that we couldn't do with the machines, you could 100% do it, and we proved it.
100%.
So,
and let's go back to the previous slide now, please, Jake. The map of the voter. Yeah, this one. Perfect. Voter ID requirements. Isn't it interesting that every single state, aside from Pennsylvania, the states that were won by the Democrats in the Electoral College, were all states that don't require voter identification.
Weird.
And so people like my roommate who didn't believe that Donald Trump, could win, said that, if Republicans really wanted to do something about this and if they wanted a fair and safe election, they should have passed this SAVE Act after the last election occurred. Somehow, by some miracle, here we are, Donald Trump's elected, and now we have this push through the House and it's going to the Senate. So from my perspective, guys, we actually did it. Not only did we win the last election, but we're actually putting the mechanisms in place to ensure that no shady and no corrupt shit like this can be pulled ever again.
Let me ask you a question, Amy. So now, let's say 4 years goes, God forbid, the Democrats win. Can they reverse the SAVE Act? I mean, like, if you think about it, this is what worries me, and I want to know if it can happen. Every single thing that Trump did or tried to do in 2016 to 2020, they reversed everything. Right when Biden came in, he was like, by the swipe, not the by swipe of a pen, by the stamp of an auto pen, everything was undone. Like, all the border was wide open. Everything was backwards.
Yeah.
So what's to say that they don't, reverse the SAVE Act? Is that possible?
Well, I believe they could, and maybe we can
Yeah,
go
they
to
could.
Brandon with that. But what's, I think, the point and what's important is to be able to get to that point of winning. They need to genuinely win by getting the court of public opinion on their side and actually doing good for their political party. That's the only way that they can get back into power now. They can't do it by cheating the same way that they did in the 2020 election on account of this. So it's one layer of protection in place to ensure that we're not going to get back to that point. As long as the Republicans keep doing a good job, the Democrats won't be able to steal it from them unless they genuinely, in an ethical way, get the court of public opinion back on their side to vote.
No, yeah, this will be like a legit 16-year run if this goes through, because I think California could be a Republican state for all we know, with the amount of fraud that they probably have. I mean, the only liability for Republicans is just this abortion stuff. They gotta chill out with that, because that's never going to be an issue that you are successful with. 70% of the
That
population.
makes you always bring this
disagree.
up. You bring
Because
this up
it's the
all the
biggest
time.
liability of the party.
Well, but dude, killing babies isn't a fucking liability, Brandon.
Well,
Sorry for
making
this
a
word.
12-year-old girl that gets raped have a kid is.
No,
That's
Brandon.
not the
Brandon,
baby's
that's-
fault, Brandon. That
it's
is
not the girl's fault either.
No, that is not the baby's fault. If a woman gets raped and something terrible happens to her,
12-year-old.
does she have the right to do something terrible to that life? She doesn't have to
Yes.
keep the baby. She can give it up for adoption.
You're gonna make
but
a 12-year-old have a
She
kid?
should not be able to murder a life. She should not be able to murder her baby.
Yeah, good
Correct.
luck selling America on that.
How are we going to sell?
I said good luck selling America on that you're going to force a 12-year-old who gets raped to have a kid.
And I'm going to say it here. That's the reason that it's very unlikely for it to be a 16-year run. You know
Yeah,
why?
that- 'cause they're not gonna flip on that
the party, or I mean, most conservatives are rotten in the inside. They need Jesus. There are things that are black and white, and there's things you cannot negotiate when it comes to policy.
That's an idiotic thing to think that
Well,
there's never
okay,
there's never an exception for an abortion.
The issue,
Never.
No, Brandon.
that's
the
not
issue
true.
is the paradigm around this. It's the fact that people do not see the life in the mother's womb as a genuine life. They see it as potential for a life. But
is a
as
life.
soon as conception happens, that is a baby.
Yeah,
That is it's a human
100%.
baby.
Yeah, and it's the worst thing.
Murdering it is just as bad as me taking a gun to your head.
And
that baby just has just as much right to life.
It's an American.
As you
But
do.
there's situations where it needs to happen, though, where
It's
it
an
could
American.
kill.
There is
What you're saying? It
literally
never
zero
kills the mother, or they never get raped.
No, there is literally zero.
Zero.
I am so staunchly pro-life that even if like they were to tell me that like your baby's gonna die shortly after being born or it's gonna have some ailment, I would still rather give birth and let that baby die in my arms with dignity and respect and the love of its mother because it's a human life.
What if they say it's going to kill you?
Brandon, no, the chances of that happening are so astronomically tiny. The only incidence in which that happens is when it's an ectopic pregnancy, which means it doesn't even make it down to the womb. It won't survive anyway in the fallopian tubes. The baby will die and the mother will die. So in that situation, it is not a full, complete pregnancy because it's not in the womb.
But
Getting
we're talking
everything
about the
that it needs.
0.1%. We're talking about the 0.1%, though. Like you
Ectopic
say,
pregnancy is
never.
different. My mother had
this bullshit fucking argument of the 1% chance is a leftist argument to like start pushing the envelope, all right? When the mother's at risk, when this and that, there's no exceptions. And I'm not gonna go religious. I'm gonna go libertarian, all right? Your first property, your only property is your body, all right? Once that body is made, it's an American and it has the rights. And I think we should get lawyers for babies. Because like, what? People at 99 or 85-year-old, they lose their chance because they're too old to be represented in a court. Like once you're a thing, you have the same rights as any other American. Like I don't know why we keep on shifting this. And I believe you on the numbers side that you can't win an election. You need to convince all the American people they're evil and dumb. All right, I give you that. But what I'm telling you, like that's rotten to the core. Like this is moral, and this is gonna make you win a few elections in the short run. But this will make you lose the country on the long run.
Do you know why there's women though that say that are proud and announce they had a 9-month abortion, like wear it as a badge of honor? They do that because of people like you that have the other extreme. Like that extreme wouldn't exist if your extreme didn't exist.
No.
So you create.
It's not an extreme.
That's
It's
not
human
true,
life.
Brandon. Do you know
It's
where
human
else
life.
they promote long-term abortions like that? North Korea and freaking China are the two places where you could have late-term abortions like that. Do we really want to become like those countries? Everything else that we believe in is completely opposite to them.
We don't believe that. That's what the culture has adopted. It's a cultural thing. Like it needs to be culturally shamed.
It
Like
needs, and it starts with
So let's
teaching
keep on
people that a
killing
baby
babies
is a
until-
real life. It's not the potential of a life. It's not a fetus. It is a life. It is a baby.
Yeah, but you cannot make a 12-year-old who gets raped have a baby if they don't want to. That's
You
insane.
can't-
That's evil.
It is evil to culturally condition that 12-year-old that it's okay to then kill something inside of her because she is also going to be traumatized by that for the rest of her life. Not only was she raped, but she has to deal with the fact that she murdered her baby.
Or was she?
And there's a lot of studies that come out that show the trauma that women deal with later on as on account of that. Oftentimes they don't realize it because they block it out of their mind. They're so traumatized that it doesn't come back and hit them years later. There's multiple studies on this. If she can't raise a child, I understand that. That's why adoption is out there. There's plenty of people who desperately want a baby, who can't have one, who want to adopt.
There's like 190 million orphans in the world, though.
And we need to do a better job pushing those properly through the vetting process of qualified people who could bring them into their home and give them a real family.
So, I mean,
we
let's-
do need to improve in that area, but we're not going to solve that by murdering babies.
Yeah,
We're
no,
just not.
Not advocating for them. Advocating for us to not be all the way extreme in one way where we potentially create evil situations where people either are forced to die because they can't get an abortion or...
There's no situation in which somebody's forced to die because they can't get an abortion.
Because
it
they
just
allow
doesn't
them.
happen.
But
it just doesn't
What are the
happen.
odds?
It's impossible. The only thing is ectopic pregnancy.
Yeah, and you
Ectopic
said your
preg-
mom. You said your mom.
Yes,
dealt
my
with it?
mom had one, unfortunately. So that's where the baby, it gets stuck in the fallopian tubes and it doesn't make it all the way down to the womb. So as the baby begins to grow, it will burst the fallopian tubes and the baby will die and the mother will die.
Oh, wow.
And so the baby is never going to survive in that instance anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to burst the tubes, it's going to die, and the mother's going to die. So that is the one circumstance where it is the life of the mother and they remove an ectopic pregnancy. That is the only exception for
Gotcha.
me.
And that's not an abortion?
That I mean, kind of, but no, not really, because that baby would have never survived anyway.
It's basically
no matter
gonna
what.
die.
Like,
It's gonna die.
It would die, and it would kill the mother anyway.
All right, so what if it has a disability where it's going to die no matter what, like when it gets born?
Like instantly, like I said, I would
Or
rather
not even instantly.
hold my baby and let it have dignity and respect and
I
die
respect
in the
that,
arms
but
of
what
its
if-
mother.
I respect that, but what if somebody else doesn't feel the same way?
I mean,
Well, it's not how they feel. There's
just the
two
right
separate
thing.
entities. There's a mother and there's a baby. They're two separate entities. Once that baby it comes to fruition, that's what it is. You
It's
know,
dependent on the mother to live, though.
no,
Guys,
but
we have a 2-minute warning here, and there is one thing that I did want to say
I was
on this
confused. I
topic.
thought we were talking about voting.
I know. The one thing that I wanted to note with this is that, you know, a lot of Democrats are out there saying that this is going to disenfranchise women and people of color, I believe, because apparently those people don't know how or where to get IDs, or they're not able to. So I wanted to know what your guys' thoughts were on that
What do you
before.
think?
I mean, I have a lot of, you know, black friends and women friends, and they know how to get IDs. So
Oh
what do you
yeah,
guys
no, I
think?
know that too, and the fact that the abortion situation. How many black women get abortions a year? Because who was the one behind Planned Parenthood? Singer.
Margaret Singer.
Margaret Singer, like
Sanger.
promoting the just abortion, Planned Parenthood. Listen, I am pro life as well. I think that type of attitude that they have, where black people are not smart enough to get fucked, was the most racist shit, and the left didn't say shit about it.
Yep.
Like, how dare you say that a certain race that they can't get IDs in Georgia? What the what? And then nobody said nothing. Nobody says nothing. Just like how Charlemagne, whatever the hell his name, Herbert, whatever the hell is real. I don't even know.
Herbert? What's his real
What's
name?
Charlemagne's? I'm never calling him God,
The
or any of
God,
that
no.
crap. When Joe Biden says to his face, if you're voting for Trump, then you ain't black, and they stay silent because they're pussies. That's what it is. So I think it's bullshit, because the amount of murdered black, like the African American percentage in America is what, 13%? It should be way more, because it's okay. It's promoted. It's like, if you have an abortion, who gives a damn? It's like business.
That's what I mean culturally. Like culturally, that attitude has to go away. Like there was a time where it was culturally shameful to get an abortion, so we need to get back to that to really reduce.
I mean,
the
yeah,
number.
but and here's my question before we're done. And by the way, guys, I love it. Do we have different opinions? We freaking get passionate. It is what it is. How many?
I don't think it's a different opinions. I think Brandon's being cowardly and he's
Cowardly.
Yeah, calculating, because you just said it. You know it's a life. And then you're willing to give that up to get a few votes.
But also, if my-
that is cowardly.
If a woman I cared about, God forbid, got raped and impregnated, I
You
would
don't fight
fully
you
support her
don't
getting an
fight
abortion.
evil with
you don't
evil.
fight evil with evil.
Yeah,
all right.
And here's
But
my
I don't
question.
want to give the rapist the victory of like impregnating
There's
someone
no
That
against
is
their
not
will.
a big. That is
Yeah, it is.
wild, Brandon. That's a super like kind of deranged way to look at it, in my opinion. Like, it's not the rapist winning by impregnating the women. And I'm sure that if you talk to a lot of women who gave birth under those circumstances, and by the way, there's even worse circumstances under which to give birth, a lot of them would still be grateful that they had their child and that they would love their child. And yeah, maybe there would be difficulties with that. They'd probably need a lot of therapy. There's trauma they have to get through. But that would not be worse than the trauma that they would have of murdering their child
I
and
respect
dealing
their opinion,
with that
but
later.
I don't think you could say that definitively in all cases. I think some people would feel the complete opposite. But like, I want them to have the choice to do whatever they want to do, and I don't want to force them into one outcome.
Coward.
Well,
Coward.
yeah, guys,
That
and go.
poisons the soul of the nation, Brandon. And you cannot do that.
Poisons the soul of the nation to
Yeah,
give a victim
you
the
cannot do
opportunity to do what they want.
that level of evil. It will bring this country down.
And I'm curious to what, like, I don't do the numbers now, but because I'm gonna go to the next segment. Like, how many underage girls are getting not only the R word, but they're getting pregnant as well? It can't be that high.
all the
No, it's not.
exceptions that the Democrats like talk about, like, oh, this is why we need this. When you add all of them up, it comes to like less than 1%.
Well, Reagan
Like,
said
it's-
his exceptions are rape, incest, and life of the mother, and Clinton said it should be rare, safe, and legal. So I mean, I kind of agree with like both of those sentiments. And Trump kind of floated in that territory too, and he wouldn't have won if he didn't.
So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.